All right, this is question number 4. If violations of any of the society's explicit rules routinely go unpunished, then that society's people will be left without moral guidance. Because people who lack moral guidance will act in many different ways, chaos results. Thus, a society ought never to allow any of its explicit rules to be broken with impunity. So, if we just take a second, we look at our main conclusion. Our main conclusion is thus a society ought to never allow any of its explicit rules to be broken with impunity. We're going to make sure that our main question or our answer choice is going to help us attack this argument. It's going to, help us destroy the argument and destroy that conclusion. This is a really good question that we can diagram because we've got quite a few conditional statements going on. So if we have if violations go routinely unpunished, let's say, there's many different ways we can do it. If this happens, if they go routinely unpunished, then society's people will have no moral guidance. They're left without moral guidance. So we could say not MG. Let's just kind of use that. And then people who lack moral guidance will act in many different ways, and then chaos results. So that's a good way of saying if there's no moral guidance, then chaos results. Many different ways, chaos results. We could probably just kind of skip the many different ways, or we can put it in here. Oh gosh, let me try that again. That was an ugly attempt at an M. So there's acting many different ways, and then chaos results. CR. Let's kind of go with that. The conclusion is therefore society should not allow rules to be broken without impunity. Another good way to say that is that rules should not go unpunished. So therefore we should um hmm, therefore we should not leave rules unpunished. That's basically what they say. So we're looking for what is making our argument vulnerable. There's some gaps in here. And if we think about those gaps, we could say, oh, well, maybe like we should probably say that we don't want chaos to result. And we could trace this whole argument backwards to get why, explicit rules should not be violations of explicit rules should not be punished or not go routinely unpunished. And I think there's an issue with the word here routinely. It just says, in our conclusion, society ought never to allow any rules to be broken with impunity, but we're only really talking about routine punishment. So I should probably go ahead and erase the R that I left in this answer choice, because we didn't talk about routinely going unpunished. We were just talking about things going unpunished generally without punity, with impunity. My goodness, my words. So this is really going to be, something that we're wanting to focus on here. Let's go through our answer choices and see, what plugs out, what points out a flaw in the argument. Does it actually happen in this passage, and does it hurt our conclusion that we should never allow any explicit rules to be broken? A, takes for granted that a society will avoid chaos as long as none of its explicit rules are routinely violated with impunity. So this is saying, we should never allow any rules, explicit rules routinely violated, and this allows for some violations here. But it doesn't necessarily say that like it takes for granted that it'll avoid chaos as long as explicit rules are routinely violated. Yeah, this one is they're hoping that you get really confused with all of this language. But we're trying to figure out, what's going to help us break the argument that a society should never allow. B, fails to consider that the violated rules might have been made to prevent problems that would not arise even if the rules were removed. We're not really concerned with removing the rules, We're not talking about, why they're coming into play. This is not helping us get to our conclusion. A society ought to never allow, or it's not helping us to break the argument. It's just out of scope. C, infers from the claim that the violation of some particular rules will lead to chaos. The violation of any rule will lead to chaos. This is interesting. This is really close to our answer choice, because we know that they're talking about, routinely leaving explicit rules unpunished. Therefore, we shouldn't let anything be broken with impunity. We want to be careful here, though, because we have explicit rules, and we can infer that there's going to be implicit rules. But we're not just talking about any rule here. That's going to be some really strong language. And they're not saying that any rule will lead to chaos. They don't really talk about that at all. So this is talking about a lot of things outside of our scope. Assuming this, or negating this is not going to help us craft our not craft. It's not going to help us break our argument that we should never break any explicit rules. They may just say, oh, don't break any of your implicit rules, don't break any rules. The word any is going to give us some issues here. D, confuses the routine non-punishment of violations of a rule with sometimes not punishing violations of the rule. So they're saying, routine non-punishment, so routinely just not enforcing it, versus, not punishing violations. Sometimes being the key word. And that's what's going to be, the key to our argument. We got from routine, so regular, to not, never allow. So, we just because this happens routinely, it's not necessarily saying that, there's sometimes not punishing it. This is looking like a really nice answer choice. Now let's look at E. Takes for granted that all of the society's explicit rules result in equally serious consequences when broken. We're not concerned about consequences here. So we can mark out E and take D as our answer.